Welcome to Big Muddy Mayhem. This is the podcast where we talk about true crime and bad behavior in the Midwest.
Each week we'll bring you two stories from the heartland that might break your heart, but we hope to entertain you along the way.
I'm Tracey and Janet.
And I'm Janet O'Brien.
Hello! Hello, Janet. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Fantastic.
We've been sitting here chatting for
a
a while
little bit.
already.
Yeah, eating some mozzarella sticks.
Yeah, she made a little
cheese plate.
It had apples and grapes, and it was just delicious. So
a little bit of a snack before we start getting into these terrible, terrible tales. Yeah. How's your week?
Oh, it's been good. It's been good. Yeah. I went to a convention this past weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I did a conflation, which is kind of a sci-fi convention. Wow, I can't
a sci-fi conviction. I want that almost as much as I want. What was the funeral? The funeral possession.
Yes. So it was a lot of fun. I got to hang out with some friends like James and Jenny and Dan and Amber, and it was just fantastic. What a really nice time.
Fantastic.
I haven't seen Amber in like 1,000 years.
No kidding.
Amber needs to listen to this podcast.
Are you listening, Amber?
Amber, are you listening?
Nice.
Oh, you have to tell them about your cookies where you had the little sign, your name on it 3 times.
Oh, yeah, it was so funny. You know, we joke all the time that on this podcast and in real life, we're both, like, when one of us wants the other's attention, it's like, Janet.
Tracy!
So I got Girl Scout cookies from a neighbor and friend's daughter, and she dropped off the cookies on my doorstep yesterday afternoon. And the little Post-it note on top just said, Tracy. Which I hope was accidental and not a sign that this 10-year-old child is listening to this podcast. We are maybe not always child-friendly. But either way, the note made me laugh, and the cookies are delicious.
Of course.
And now I have a bunch of Girl Scout cookies. So
nice.
We're all sugared up and stuffed full of mozzarella sticks, and I think it's probably time to get in the mud.
Yep, time to get muddy. And you believe you're starting first with the conclusion of last week's story.
We are a continuation of last week's story.
Excellent.
So we are starting out, we're talking about a different killer from around the same time period and the same place.
Okay.
And I am this week going to talk to you about the I-70 Strangler.
Oh, I remember this guy.
Do you really?
Yeah, I kind of do.
Okay, fantastic. So we're back in Indiana.
Okay.
The I-70 Strangler is known to have killed at least 12 victims between 1980 and 1991.
Wow.
So the victims all have a lot in common.
Okay.
They are all found in Indiana or Ohio, always just off the highway along I-70. Now, that stretch of I-70 is pretty much just a straight line.
Right, exactly. Oh my God, yeah.
So hard to drive
So
through.
hard to drive. I mean, it's not driving through Kansas 70, but it's not awesome.
It's close, yeah. So they're all found along Interstate 70. They are all mostly young men and boys. The oldest victim, there's one victim who is 42.
Okay.
The others are all in their teens or 20s. I think one was 29. The others are all like either teens or very, very early 20s. They're all strangled whenever we can detect what the manner of death was. They are all found fully or partially naked. The victims are almost all gay men. Now, there are some that are found where they're like, you know, the families are like, oh, he wasn't gay, but
they were.
They probably were. And many of them were sex workers. Some of them, sex workers that are addicts, so maybe it's not so much about their orientation as it is about, like, doing what they can to make money to get a fix.
Sure, absolutely.
Kind of thing. This works against them being looked for or investigated, sadly.
Yeah. Oh,
because
it's just another hooker who died, kind of thing.
Exactly. It's 1980 to 1991.
Yeah.
So Many are not in close contact with family, and they are victims of what the police will just shrug off as like, well, they were living a risky lifestyle.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and so it's hard to get these crimes looked into. But when we finally reach victim number 4, they do form a task force.
Good.
Because we finally have a little something to go on. Victim number 4, his name was Michael Riley. He was seen leaving a nightclub. Some sources say the Vogue Theater, but it seems like it was probably one called the Broad Ripple.
Okay.
And he's seen leaving with a man. And now there's a sketch.
Oh.
So we have an FBI sketch of the person that we think is responsible. At this time, they also add 4 more names to the list of people that they think that he has killed. But those are later taken off because they don't fit the profile.
Ah, gotcha.
So these are also gay men that are in the Indiana, Ohio area, but they're not strangled. And the FBI says that the killer was more violent. These are mostly like stabbings.
Yeah.
And the FBI profile says that the killer is more violent and likely younger.
Gotcha.
So the profile of the killer. We are looking for, according to the FBI, a white man, probably in his 40s.
Okay.
Affluent. He has money, probably a high-paying, like, respected job. He is possibly overweight, but he definitely has issues with his body image.
Gotcha.
And I don't know how they come up with all of this, but
I'm not a cop.
but this is what they do. They also say that he is likely to be married, but probably in a loveless or sexless marriage. So we have several suspects. Number 1 is Duncan Patterson. Mm-hmm. Now, he's arrested in 1982 for statutory rape.
Okay.
He's admitted that he did pay one of the victims,
right?
A boy named Delvoid Baker, who was the youngest victim. He was only 14.
Oh no!
He did pay Delvoid Baker. He paid him for oral sex, but says that after he paid him and they had, done what he did to him, he drops him off at the library and he sees him go off with another man.
Gotcha.
Now, there's witness testimony that confirms this, and Patterson also passes a polygraph test.
Okay.
So he's convicted on molestation charges for Delvoid and also for other victims, but he's not convicted of murder.
Right.
So suspect number 2. We are looking at Larry Eyler.
Okay.
And, let me pull up my photos here.
Sweet.
I couldn't find any pictures of Patterson. This is the photo of Larry Eyler.
Okay. He just looks like a guy with a mustache and...
A very 80s mustache.
Yeah, very 80s looking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now this guy is his own entire episode.
Oh no.
But we don't have the time to get into it today. I didn't feel like doing a 3-parter. Because this story is kind of a bummer all the way around.
Okay.
Now, we don't know if he's their guy, but we do know that he is a murdering piece of shit.
Oh no.
We know that he killed people. Like, a lot of people.
Oh, Jesus.
When he's arrested with an abducted hitchhiker that's in his car.
Oh, my God.
Can you believe people used to just get into the cars of strangers? Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah, all the
your
time.
Your car breaks down, somebody pulls over and offers to help.
You just get in the car.
I've done it myself.
Yeah, it's like, Uber without a phone tracking you.
Right, completely. So,
your Uber is your thumb.
Exactly. So, he's got an abducted hitchhiker in the car with him. Also in the car, there's a hammer.
Oh my God.
Rope.
Oh, no.
Couple of baseball bats.
Oh, Jesus.
You know the usual.
Yeah, of course, the usual.
Just the things you travel with.
Exactly.
Maybe a blanket. Who knows? Shoes and tires match some of the plaster casts from some of these crime scenes.
Oh, my gosh.
Also, Eyler is released because of improper search procedures.
Oh, my God.
So they have him, and they have these things that kind of do add up.
Uh-huh.
But they gotta let him go.
Oh, my God.
Later, he is arrested again and convicted in a different murder.
Oh, my God.
Larry Eyler goes to trial, and he is issued a death sentence. Okay? While he's on death row, Eyler says he's willing to confess and help solve a bunch of cases if they'll give him life in prison instead of lethal injection.
Okay.
Right? So he has cases that he says he's willing to solve that are, I think, in like 7 or 8 different counties, and all but one of them, the local authorities are like, yeah, we'll take that deal.
Right.
So he says that he's going to go ahead and give the confessions in exchange for life in prison, but he dies anyway.
Oh, really?
In 1994 due to complications from AIDS.
Oh, okay.
So he dies before the deal goes all the way through. But
yes,
posthumously, his attorney releases the details of the confession.
Oh, thank God.
Eyler knew what he was doing and gave permission. Once he knew he was dying and it wasn't going to
It was just like, just let it go.
He's like, just tell them. That's fine.
Good.
So he has this 11th hour where he just kind of tries to make right.
Right.
He confessed to 21 murders.
Jesus.
Confessed to, and they were able to kind of substantially prove that he was responsible for 21 murders.
Holy cow.
But none of the names on his list are victims of the I-70 Strangler.
Oh, so this is just a separate thing. Completely.
21 murders, maybe they're connected, maybe he just didn't name those people, but for whatever reason, yeah. So 21 on his list, but none of them are attributed to the I-70 Strangler.
Wow.
Now, the method is different for starters. Now, these were people that were typically stabbed or bound.
Oh.
Sometimes dismembered, but not strangled.
Aha.
The things that they have in common are that these are mostly gay men.
Right.
And that they are ditched alongside I-70. But again, method of death is completely different.
Right.
And these all also took place over a much shorter time frame, like a year to 2 years.
21 people in 1 to 2 years?
Yes.
Jeez.
As opposed to the Strangler, who had 11 years.
Right.
With all of the victims, right? Now, those 4 murders that were dropped from the list before, probably Eyler for these
probably,
guys,
right?
Because they were stabbed, it was a lot more violent.
Sure.
So he's probably responsible for those 4 and the 21 that he,
claims.
Admits to. So that will, of course, bring us to our third and final suspect, our good friend Herb Baumeister.
Oh,
from last week's episode.
Yes.
So, Herb Baumeister, he fits a lot of the FBI profile. Mm-hmm. He has a wife, but as we said last week, they were rarely intimate. They had 3 kids, and she claimed they'd only had sex 6 times in 25 years.
Right.
And he has never let her see him naked in 25 years. So that fits in with the body image.
Yes.
Although they live in Indiana, Herb travels for work a lot with those thrift stores that, which involves going to Ohio a lot. Mm-hmm. So he travels a bunch, mostly to Ohio. Remember, she used to take the kids up to Lake Wawasee, and he would not be around, or I'm so sorry, caught up at work, I'll just meet you later.
Right.
Also, Julie, his wife, as we noticed last week when her kid comes marching in with a skull on a stick, Julie is pretty trusting / clueless.
Yes.
She travels with the kids a lot, and she's somebody that I think is pretty easily manipulated.
Yeah.
So, in 1998, someone ties the sketch from Michael Riley's disappearance to Herb Baumeister. Now, I specifically didn't show you a picture of Herb last week.
Okay.
Here is the sketch.
Okay, so he's got a long face. He's got, I don't know, kind of a wide-ish nose. He's got short hair. He's a white guy. His thinnish eyebrows. And he's got a long chin.
Yeah, and kind of like heavy-hooded eyes.
Yes, heavy-hooded eyes, yes.
Okay. Here is a picture of Herb Baumeister.
Wow. Yeah.
So, on a scale of 1 to he did it.
Oh my God.
How close are these?
These are like 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pretty good. So, someone took the sketch from Michael Riley's disappearance, and they were like, I know this guy, that's Herb Baumeister. So, I know police sketches aren't always great, but there is a case to be made here.
Exactly.
Now, there is no actual physical evidence tying Baumeister, but he is kind of, at this point, the front runner for this case. Right. Enter Julie again. She might not be good at knowing what her husband is up to, but she's very good at keeping records.
Oh.
And she was in business with him.
Right, of course.
At the Save-A-Lot stores. So, bank records, receipts, travel confirmations, all of that, they are hand in glove with all of his Ohio trips.
Oh.
And consequently, the Ohio murders. Like, there's a whole lot of stuff that just like, oh, wow, strange that this happened.
When he was in
Ohio.
Ohio.
When he was in Ohio. Also, it is, as the kids would say, a little sus. The I-70 killings stop right around the time that Julie and Herb buy the Fox Hollow farm.
Oh.
Which is right about the time that those disappearances near his home start. The pool, the mannequins.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So, wouldn't you like to work a little closer to home? You know?
Right, I guess.
So, the I-70 disappearances stop right around the same time that these Fox Hollow murders start.
Wow.
There's also, and I don't know whether this, can be explained or not, but there is also a break in the killings. Again, the, Baumeister, it was like the I-70 Strangler, it was 11 years.
Right.
With breaks in between. The breaks in between do also tend to correspond to right around the time of the birth of each of Herb and Julie's 3 children.
Interesting.
So, maybe you can't get out right away.
Nope.
Can't go out killing when the missus is at home with a newborn.
Nope.
Yeah. And so, Indiana police have more or less said that they think that this is the guy, Baumeister. But,
right.
Again, Herb is dead, ate a peanut butter sandwich, and then shot himself, and so this is technically still a cold case.
Wow.
But we're not done.
Of course not.
In 2022, 26 years after Herb ate that peanut butter sandwich and then ate a gun, the new owners of the property, remember how I said that 8 acres are the Urban Vines Winery?
Right.
And the other 10 are privately owned?
Yes.
They are owned by a couple, kind of somewhat hilariously named Robert and Vicky Graves.
Oh
no! The shit writes itself, right? Sometimes it just writes itself.
It does.
Robert and Vicky Graves allow for a search of the property because they have been finding a bunch of bones on their property.
That's so interesting. I wonder why.
Well, when we last left them in the 90s, they had found, they think, 11 victims.
Right.
8 that were identified. Well, they bring about a dozen cadaver dogs to go search those 10 acres. The graves have found some bones, the dogs find some more.
Of course.
And they find a few more areas of interest that the dogs hit upon.
Oh my gosh.
Like 20.
Oh my gosh. How many people disappeared during the...
We're going to get there. So, as of July of 2023.
Oh, wow.
So this is still literally
very new.
Not even a year ago.
No.
They have found at least 2 more complete DNA profiles out at Fox Hollow Farm.
Wow.
They have the full DNA profiles. Now the problem is, and they've got a few more that they think might come to fruition as they continue to look. They are just waiting for and looking for the families of these men. Like I said, because of when this took place and the fact that these were gay men, many of them were not in contact with their families. And if they disappear, it was like, oh, well, they went missing. But they weren't, well, maybe they just left. A grown adult is allowed to just pick up and leave.
Right.
So they are just trying to find people that are, to match to these profiles.
Absolutely.
They think that there may be as many as 25 victims total out at Fox Hollow Farm.
Wow.
And again, that's in addition to the minimum of the 12 victims
that they already found
along I-70 that are attributed to the I-70 Strangler.
Wow.
So everything that I have read, we can't definitively draw conclusions, but for my money, Herb Baumeister had a life of crime before Fox Hollow Farm, and he is almost certainly considered to be the I-70 Strangler.
Wow, that's crazy.
So that was the sad conclusion. Like I said, it was too much for one episode.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But when I read about this after he had already died,
you're like, oh,
we got to have a part 2.
Exactly.
We have to have a part 2 here.
Well, that was amazing and sad.
Yeah.
I mean, it just it speaks volumes when it's the 1980s and people literally just cut ties with their family members because over being gay, which is just crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just like, oh, they just ran out and took off. I'm like, okay, if you've been listening to our podcast, the only time people just move on or disappear is normally in the 1800s.
Right.
Right?
Where you just show up in Toledo and you're a doctor now.
Or if they're gone, they're just gone, But, yeah.
Before I forget, I do want to cite my sources for this episode, which were, of course, as always, Wikipedia. The True Crime All the Time podcast, which I don't know if they are still recording, but the episode that I listened to did have some, some interesting stuff that I couldn't find on other sources. And also the Indianapolis Star.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you. That was amazing.
You're welcome. Sorry to bring you bummer part 2. But like I said, I couldn't tell the first part of that story and not tell the second.
Right. So, not completely verified, but most likely I-70.
Herb Baumeister. Also, though, Larry Eyler, also a piece of shit.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that story.
You are welcome. Do you have something to bring me down?
As always.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So we're going to go back in time a little.
Okay.
Because, that's how we balance things out.
Nice.
Have you ever heard of Rose Veras?
I have not.
Okay. So I have a story of a woman by the name of Rose Veras. Mm-hmm. Her name was Rosalia Sebesten. Not gonna even try to pronounce that.
Stein?
Yeah. She's actually from Hungary.
Okay.
She was born in 1871.
Mm-hmm.
There is not a whole lot of information about her when she was living over there other than the fact that she married a man by the name of Martin.
Okay.
They were young when they got married. And then during a time when a lot of people were moving from that area, including my great-grandmother actually moved
Really?
from, like, she had a Hungarian accent, but the borders kept changing all
No
the time.
way.
And she moved here in, like, 1916 to get away from whatever was happening over there, which was mostly World War I stuff, even though...
Right.
Yeah, right. So he ends up moving to the U.S., her husband, and he ends up getting a job in Detroit because there's several factories there.
Okay, right. And this is a good, factory jobs were clutch for immigrants because you didn't have to, if you didn't have a full grasp of the English language, if you were not quite sure where you were going, this is something that, like, you could be easily trained to do and make a living wage.
Exactly. So, he moves to Detroit, and the whole point is that she's going to move over there eventually.
Right.
And
you send one person over and then you send for family. Yeah.
So he's in Detroit, and then she just stops hearing from him. Like, he just stops replying to her messages.
Okay.
And she's like, you know what? I'm getting on a boat.
Wow, that's so brave.
I know, she's like, you know what? I'm supposed to be over there and he's not responding. Let me go see if he's not dead. So she ends up getting on a boat, takes the boat over to the United States, and she makes her way to Detroit. She finds him alive and well.
She is the ancestral equivalent of, and I have been this girl that will get in the car and drive past where your man is supposed to be.
Exactly.
Boy, you better not let me catch you there.
Again, my great-grandmother kind of did the same thing.
Really?
I will explain that later. Because,
please do.
Yes. So anyway, she gets on the boat, comes over, finds him, shacked up with another woman.
Oh, hey there, Martin. What's up?
Oh,
who's your friend?
So you're alive. So clearly they end up getting a divorce. She's like, no. Just...
He's lucky he got off with divorce.
I know.
Or does he?
No, they got a divorce. So she divorced, and then she ends up moving to this area called Delray. It's actually a part of Detroit, but the area wasn't considered a city or a town. It was just like an area called Delray.
An outskirts type.
It's like right on, I think is that the Detroit River? I don't have the map in front of me. Anyway.
That's okay.
So she moves to this area called Delray, and it has a large Hungarian population.
Good. So she's got, people like, you see a lot of that, especially like around the late 1800s and stuff like that. People are, there's folks immigrating from all over, and you find, kind of your community.
Exactly. So she doesn't speak a lot of English. She speaks very little. Right. So this is the perfect area for her to live. She moves there, and then she meets her second husband, Gabor, Gabor. They end up getting a house, and they turn this house that they are living in into a boarding house. So they're living in a they own a house, and they run a boarding house.
This could go one of two ways.
When you say boarding house, I don't know how many true crime things I have watched where like, oh, this isn't going to go well. Mm-hmm. Right? So they end up running this boarding house together.
And we've already established that she's the kind of woman that will get on her steamship and come halfway across the world to catch her man cheating.
Exactly. So they end up running the boarding house, and they're in Delray. There's actually a lot of factories right on the river. Okay. So a lot of people who are coming over, they get their factory jobs, and then they're like, well,
where do we live?
Right. I'm just by myself. I don't need a house.
Right.
I just need a room.
And maybe maybe I can pay the landlady extra to
feed me or
give me
whatever.
Dinner every night.
Yeah. And so that's kind of what their borders are. They're basically people who are employed and unemployed, and they're living in the boarding house. They live in this house for years. They end up having 3 children. Uh-huh. And then things start to go a little strange. Okay. And I tried to put this in order, but it kind of went all over the place. So
I hear you. So when stuff goes on for like a manner of years like that, then it sometimes is hard to to put it sequentially. Yeah.
We're gonna start with February 7th, 1925. 1925. There's another guy by the name of Gaber, which is kind of interesting. I guess that might have been they probably had, I would assume, some Hungarian people who lived in their house. So a person by the name of Gaber Fages, Fejas, he's 58 years old. He dies of chronic pancreatitis. Nothing you can do about it then. You know, that's the thing. There's another person by the name of John Liccardi in 1925. They don't know what he passes away of, but he dies.
Okay.
Don't have an age. We have another person by the name of Steve Faish, 1925 or 1926. Not really clear on the year. He dies of alcoholism.
Okay.
Let's see here. In 1925, on October 15th, there's John Norday. He's 30 years old. He ends up dying of acute dilation of the heart. So there's a lot of people dying in this house.
Of a lot of weird different things, though.
Exactly.
Now, these are all boarders?
Yes.
Huh, and all men?
Uh-huh. In 1926, June 24th, John Sukevan, 44 years old, he dies in the basement because he hung himself.
Okay.
In 1927...
My God!
I know. Gaber, her husband...
Oh!
And a friend of his by the name of Laszlo Taff, they both die of carbon monoxide poisoning because her husband was working on a vehicle and had the garage door closed.
Oh, boy. That one was...
yeah.
That's a greatest hit, right? You see that in so many true...
Yeah. So they both die. And then in let's see here. Where's another one? 1931, Ballet Peterman, who's 68. He dies of pneumonia. There's a couple other people. See, like I said, this kind of skips around.
Right.
Benny Koda, 48 years old in 1926. He dies of, and I'm sure this is not even a word anymore because, terms for ailments that back then have changed. It's myorcarditis.
Microcardia?
Yeah.
I think that has something to do with your heart.
Yeah. But it seems like a lot of heart people. And he was 48.
Right.
And then there was another person at the age of 60, April 16th, 1931. He also dies of acute dilation of the heart. So there's like 3 heart people.
Okay, a lot of stuff with heart things. Alcoholism, which can also be heart related.
And this is also during the Depression.
Ah, okay.
So there's unemployed people. There's the alcoholic, he drank himself to death.
Mm-hmm.
Heart stuff. One hanging. Just lots of weird stuff. She ends up getting arrested twice.
Okay.
During this time, like specifically, I think after her husband passed away, going, there's something really weird going on at your boarding house.
Completely.
Why are all these people dying?
Another vacancy? Like, why is the vacancy light always?
Exactly.
Yeah, no, completely. And I would also guess that during the Depression, if there are people left behind, that are looking for these men, even if they have suspicions, who has the money to look after?
Exactly.
Like, who has the money to chase that down?
So they ended up arresting her twice. They never had enough evidence, so they let her go both times. When her husband did pass away from the carbon monoxide with his friend, she was only 50 years old.
Wow.
And so she ends up running the boarding house by herself. 1929, that's obviously when the Great Depression starts. Rose ended up, she looked, when the Depression happened, I don't know what, I guess it was all the stress and stuff, she ended up looking a lot older than what she should be. Okay,
so she's 50, roughly?
She's only 50.
At this point. All
yes.
Right.
Yes.
So.
Let me find a picture here because I'm just like...
And you and I are both years old.
She had a rough life, just really, really did.
Well, the killing will take it out of you, I guess.
Exactly, right?
But no, so, all right, so she's
here
50. She has been a bit... Whoa! Wow. Okay,
My grandmother never looked that old. My great-grandmother, I'm sorry.
Muddy Buddies. Y'all.
Y'all.
Girl. This is a rough 50. And
yeah, Rose is not doing well.
I've seen some rough 50s. Now, it doesn't do her any favors.
And so she's wearing the thing on her head?
This photo features her in a hairnet and a very unflattering top. But that being said, first of all, if you look up crazy eyes in the dictionary, I am going to be a little scared to sleep tonight. No, Rose, I mean, she's asking that eyeliner to do the Lord's work here. There's so much of it.
You mean the Lord's work?
Oh my gosh. She's asking a lot of her eyeliner here.
I know you. I think that's the only picture of her. And it's like everywhere.
Oh gosh, imagine having only one photo of you survive the test of time and it's this one.
I know.
Oh, like couldn't you have found my sophomore year class picture or something?
Nope. No,
with
they
the
find
bad
that one.
perm?
Nope, they find that one.
Woof. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna try to scrub my brain of that.
I know.
Do go on.
So anyway, obviously Rose looked older than her age at this time, and the residents started calling her a witch because
On what grounds?
a couple. First off, you have the people dying in the boarding house. Then we have that look. She didn't speak a lot of English, obviously, but there was a lot of other people who were, spoke Hungarian there. And there is a dog in here.
I know.
The dog really wants to give me her toy.
I know. I'm gonna move her back out. I'm sorry. She was scratching on the.
Oh, don't forget her toy.
Yeah, she was scraping on the fence, the doggy gate, and so I thought it would be quieter if I let her in. I'm sorry, you guys. We need a studio and not just a kitchen. Subscribe to our Patreon. All right.
So anyway, they start calling her about a witch. The neighbors start complaining that she's stealing people's husbands because guys.
Ow!
I know. She would end up. There was a lot of men who ended up at a boarding house.
All right.
And then shortly after they were at the boarding house, they would just divorce or just abandon their wives.
They're like lemmings over a cliff, right? Like you would think after the first 5 or 6 go missing that you're like, maybe don't get mixed up with
this lady.
With this lady.
Right. Okay. So now we kind of come to this is the case that kind of pushed everything.
Okay.
August 23rd, 1931.
All right. Wow, so this has been a while.
Yeah, well, I mean, the last murder was in 31. So that was the 66-year-old of pneumonia. So August 23rd, 1931, Steve Mack, he is rushed to the hospital. He's 68 years old. He's one of her tenants. Apparently, the people who stayed there, they were kind of responsible for helping her fix the house because it was just her.
Right. So, can you help the landlady out?
Exactly.
You
they
want to
probably
be on
didn't
good
pay
terms.
a lot of money or
right,
whatever.
Right.
And so they had these tenant houses. They're very close together. And he's got this really long ladder, and it's he was doing something with a window. I don't remember what. I have pictures of it. I will show you in a moment. And he ends up falling off the ladder.
Okay.
He fell off the ladder. It's leaning against the house. He was also a Hungarian immigrant. He was the father of 3 girls, and he was unemployed. They end up arresting her for this murder because some people claim that they saw her and her 18-year-old son throw him out the window.
Whoa, okay.
Like 2 different people. Here's the other thing. So when these people would come over on the boat, she would end up taking out basically a life insurance policy
For those of you playing along with your true crime bingo cards at home.
Right?
Oh, there it is.
There it is. So she has a lot of she took out eventually they figured out she took out 75 different ones.
Holy moly.
Like, I think they would lapse after whatever amount of time, but she took out 75 in total. So they end up basically arresting her. They're just like, you know what? There's been a lot of death here, and now, we have 2 people who said they've witnessed you and your son throwing him out the window. You're coming with us. Her 18-year-old son was also implicated, obviously, and someone else said they saw him help her throw Steve Mack out the window. Also, during this time, just to add a little bit more layer of why everything is kind of crazy here, we have Prohibition happening.
Okay, so...
it's just, there's a lot of weird things
There are lots of layers in this story.
Right, so right now in Detroit at this time in 1931, for the past 11 years, there's been a very well-established mob in the town. There's the Italian mob and then the regular local mob. Liquor is coming across the river from Canada.
Oh, right.
Because, it's like you could take it in boats. You could practically walk it across the river.
Mm-hmm.
And there's lots of lawless behavior happening. I'm giving that you as a backdrop on what happens next.
Okay.
So they're both sentenced to life in prison because the jury is reading way too much press about this. Lots of I'd say over half of the jury is they're stay-at-home moms.
Oh, okay. So they're all kind of spoiled on the case. There is no we didn't know anything about it.
They're reading stuff about it. There's a word for it where you're not supposed to read anything. Anyway.
Sequestered.
Yes, they were not.
They were not.
They were not. And during the trial on October 1st of 1931, they ended up producing a $5,200 life insurance policy on Steve Mack.
Oh.
He went into the hospital, and I think he died 2 days later. John Walker, a former boarder of her place, testified that he thought that she had tried to poison Steve first before that incident. And then there was an 11-year-old neighbor across the street by the name of Marie. She claimed that she saw her and the son throw him out the window. So we have a former boarder who doesn't board with her anymore. Maybe he has some kind of conflict with her. And then we have the 11-year-old across the street.
What reason does he have to lie?
Yeah, I don't know. Another neighbor, Bessie Hill, said after it happened, she came over looking disheveled and asked to borrow a towel so she could wash her hands and face, which...
You don't own a towel? You own a boarding house?
I don't know!
You own a boarding house, but you don't have any linen?
I don't know.
What kind of hotel is this?
So this happens in 31. In 1944, so they're both in jail. They've been in jail for 14 years at this point. They end up... They found another lawyer to try to help them with the case. We felt like we were convicted incorrectly, but that lawyer just disappeared, was supposed to work on the appeal, just disappeared.
Sure, I'll call you.
Right. But in 1944, they find this lady lawyer. And she's one of those lawyers, like what today you have those specific lawyers, they're like, okay, that person has been in jail for 20 years and they didn't do anything.
Right, like the Innocence Project.
Exactly.
Right,
This is one of those people.
Okay. I was going to say also a woman lawyer in 1944
I know,
is
right?
still pretty rare, yeah.
So Miss Aline Coots, she ends up getting them a new trial. And she is basically pointing out the fact that during the original trial, Rose didn't really speak English.
Oh.
So she doesn't really even understand what's going on. No, they didn't even put her on the stand or anything.
Oh.
They didn't do anything. And so she's like, she didn't understand what the hell was going on. So they basically, what happens is because the son was only 18 and apparently his IQ was really low, that he had already served 14 years. And they're like, you know what? If you did do anything, you probably were
a kid and being influenced.
Yeah, and so they just said, you know what? You're released. Time served. Just get out. Just get out of jail. That's fine. And then she ends up getting her a new trial.
Okay.
And so they end up getting the new trial, and then she gets out of jail.
Wow.
Now nobody knows. Nobody has any clue if she really actually did this. I mean, it's just like she ended up living the rest of her life. She never moved out of Delray, even though it's a part of Detroit.
Wow.
The neighbors knew her.
What did she do after she got out from money? Did she run a boarding house or anything again? Do we know?
Not really say, but like neighbors said, yeah, she's a very nice lady. She just kind of had a rough life.
Wow.
And I think she passed away in 1960.
She might have had like the worst luck ever and the biggest coincidences, but I
know.
Man, this is...
And like they've gone back to that house and kind of looked. The house that used to be there, it's gone. But there's still, like, Delray is one of those areas in Detroit where it has sat still in time since the 1930s because a lot of those factories failed. Nobody built anything new over there. There's houses that are very much like the house that she used to live in. And it's just very interesting.
Wow.
Like, here, I'm going to try to find a picture of the house itself.
How do we always end up with stories that are parallel to one another?
Right?
Like,
I don't know.
Both of them are like, yeah, they did it, but we can't prove that they did it this week.
And her nickname, because of the way she looked and everything, like the newspapers...
Oh, this could be mean.
They used to call her the Witch of Delray.
The Witch of Delray. I mean,
yeah.
That is not the unkindest thing that you could say about
no.
parents, but
she kind of had a rough life. So
she did have a rough life.
It's just really, yeah. So,
but also, I feel like she did it.
I know.
If she didn't, who did?
There's a better picture of her.
Oh well, slightly. Did she never take that thing off her head?
Okay, so this is where I was going to go into my great-grandmother. My great-grandmother is from Romania. And
pretty necklace, though.
Right, and there's pictures of her mother where they just wore things over the head. That was very normal. Like, I have an actual picture of my great-great-grandmother. Mm-hmm. Like, from over there.
How many boarders did she kill?
None.
Allegedly.
Yeah, it's just very interesting. Oh, yeah, here's a picture of her. She just has the same blank look every time.
Boy, she really does.
She just doesn't look any different from any picture.
And that stare.
Right? Like yeah, I know.
Woof.
So they end up like, there was a lot of, what happened is that when the son was in jail, there was so much corruption happening in Detroit at this time that one of the people that was actually trying to put them in jail, he ended up getting arrested for something else completely. And he ends up going to the same jail that her son is at. And he ends up running into him going, there's a way you can probably get out of this.
Oh, wow.
Detroit was like super corrupt at this point.
Completely. Well, I mean, we're like, laws are changing all over the place and we're kind of in a lawless land, and they're in that whole area. Yeah. Like you said, during Prohibition, all of the booze smuggling down from Canada.
Exactly.
I've watched Boardwalk Empire. I know what's going on. And if you haven't, watch Boardwalk Empire.
I have not watched
that.
It's such a good show.
Such a good show. Steve Buscemi. Good.
I ended up watching a video for a while by Karen Dybis, Dybis. She actually wrote a book about this whole thing. Okay. She did a ton of research. And she has like a whole thing on it. Here, that's a better picture. This is the kind of houses that they lived in.
Oh, okay,
So that's like today.
So they are
They're wooden houses.
they're little wooden houses. They're little kind of like bungalow type styles, like A-frames, kind of not necessarily what you would see as single family homes nowadays, but what you might see at like a campground or like not like a mobile home park, but something where you have just neighborhoods of little boxes.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that are just kind of all around.
And it was very interesting watching the video of her explaining all the things that were happening. She was more, it was almost like Karen was more interested on what was happening in Detroit for her to even get arrested and get out at the same time.
Right.
You know, no one is ever going to know if she actually did this or not. But there was so much corruption that she was able to get out because of somebody who put them away, basically.
Right.
And then ended up in the same jail. Yeah, the video was very, very entertaining. The name of the book is The Witch of Delray.
Okay.
So
we might have to add that to our Big Muddy library.
I know!
The giant stack of crime books that's like slowly growing on my desk.
Exactly.
Although, oof, we can get rid of the Elf Bolin one from a couple of weeks ago because like I said, I tried to use that as a source, but it was mostly softcore porn.
You're like, no.
I have some passages that I will do a dramatic reading for you, but we're gonna put that behind
a
the
paywall.
Wow.
So that's my story.
Wild. Wow.
I mean, there wasn't a ton in it, but it was very interesting. And the woman who wrote that book, oh my gosh, she was super excited. She's like, nobody even knows about this lady.
I feel like she did have a hard time and probably was like treated kind of hard by a handful of people.
Exactly.
But I also think she did it. Two things can be true at once.
Exactly. I have no idea, you know. Yep, so that's my story.
Well, I think that calls for a pause.
I think it causes
calls
for a pause.
Calls for a pause. We are going to
I think I watched too many Canadian things.
Calls for a pause. That wasn't Canadian. I don't know what that was.
No.
Anyway, we are going to treat this neglected dog and make some spring rolls and freshen our beverages, and we'll be back for What's Nice.
We'll be back for What's Nice.
Hi, friends. This is where we would normally ask our Muddy Buddies to buy our merch, subscribe to the podcast, etc. But we are kind of freewheeling a little bit this week, and that is because what we really need you to do is share the podcast with your family and friends. The more that you share, the more that we find new listeners. Anything that you do that helps us to kind of gain new listenership will ultimately increase our audience and help support the podcast. So please, if you wouldn't mind, this week, if you're so inclined, give us a nice review and a 5-star rating, but also pick a friend or two, somebody at work. If you know somebody that loves true crime, tell them about us. Like, hey, go listen to Big Muddy Mayhem. Suggest your favorite episode. And if you would like, email us at bigmuddymayhem@gmail.com and let us know what your favorite episodes are. That way we'll pimp them out and pump them up. And hopefully we'll have more Muddy Buddies in the future. And now we're going to get back to What's Nice. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
We are back for What's Nice. And Janet, I had kind of an embarrassment of riches this week in that since it was the I-70 Strangler, I had a whole big stretch of I-70.
Yeah, you did.
To pick from. But I did choose a few little things, a little sampler platter, if you will.
I love sample platters.
Of nice things along I-70 in Indiana and Illinois.
Okay.
Or in Indiana and Ohio, my gosh gracious. It would help if I knew what state I was talking about, yeah? So, number one, we are talking about the home of the world's largest candle.
Yay!
This is in Centerville, Indiana.
Yes!
It is one of, have you been there?
No, I haven't seen the largest candle. I've seen a lot of largest things, but not the candle.
Okay. So this is in Centerville, Indiana, the Warm Glow Candle Outlet. This is one of those roadside attractions that one of those huge everything stores.
Yes.
Like the Mars Cheese Castle.
Yes.
You can get candles. There's local wine, there's local beer, holiday decor, etc. The candle is a sculpture, of course.
I have been there.
Have you?
I have metal. They have a whole bunch of metal things too that you can put in your yard. I have some of that in my front yard.
There's like a model.
Totally been there.
You've not only been there, but you've bought merch.
Yes, that's in front of my house.
Amazing. Well, you need to get a picture.
Yes.
And we'll put this in the show notes. There's also, I think, like a model Ford museum there.
Oh my God, no.
So that was my first one.
Nice.
My second one is the Melody 49 Drive-In.
Okay.
And this is in Ohio. And this was built in 1966.
Okay.
Now, it's a drive-in, but what I found interesting is they apparently have 2 screens and room for 1,100 cars, which is huge for a drive-in.
That is a big drive-in. Wow.
Yeah. Now, they have a full menu that's full of the standard drive-in snacks, the hot dogs, popcorn, etc. But they also have pizza, burgers,
nice,
fried pickles, fried Oreos, all the yummy treats, and more. They also do like concert films and things like that. I just looked them up and found that last fall they did the Taylor Swift Eras tour. And it is still beautifully, perfectly mid-century modern, which I know we both love. You can see the entrance.
That is wonderful.
And then you can see how big the parking lot is.
That is a big parking lot.
Way bigger than our local one.
Wow.
And the last thing that I have for What's Nice is I had to include this. Boone, Indiana is featuring a Get Mooned in Boone.
What does that mean?
It's for this the solar eclipse that's going to happen in April of 2024.
The one we're going to go see in Indiana.
We are also going to be in Indiana, but in Boone, Indiana, they are doing a festival throughout the whole entire city.
Oh my God!
With a lot of different activities.
Nice.
They expect about 4 minutes of totality.
Wow.
Which will be similar to what we will see in New Harmony.
Yep.
But Get Mooned in Boone, which I had to laugh at that because I'm 12. And the night before the eclipse, there's a concert by a band called Pink Droid.
Pink Droid?
Now,
it's a light show.
They bill themselves as the Midwest's premier Pink Floyd cover band. Now, St. Louisans and fans of El Monstero are going to have a bone to pick with that. But it's coupled with a laser light show. Tickets are $20. And as of recording this afternoon, they are still available.
Wow.
So just a few of many, many things that are along I-70 in that stretch of road. And that's what's nice this week.
That is awesome. I love it. I can't believe, I've been to the first one. We went there.
The largest candle, of course, you have.
I think
were you with your parents?
Yes, of course.
Hi, Mom and Dad.
I think that was when we did the trip to New York.
Oh, fun.
Yeah,
okay.
Because we were like, we're going to stop at things. Because
did you buy a candle?
Actually, I did not. I bought other things. I have a candle problem. I was like, I don't need to bring any more candles to my house. Yeah. I just don't. Oh my God.
While you're looking yours up, I will also mention that my sources for What's Nice were RoadsideAmerica.com, themelody49drivein.com, and discoverboonecounty.com.
Nice. Okay. So you're ready for mine?
I'm ready for What's Nice.
So, just to be clear, in the early 1900s, 1990s, I said 1900s. I am not that old.
You're going to age yourself like her. Next thing you know, Janet's showing up wearing a bonnet and a 40-yard stare.
For about 3 years, my parents actually moved to Detroit. They only live there over the summer.
Okay.
My dad had a job. They were like, okay, my dad is strongly against living in a cold climate. He hates cold weather. He's like, okay, well, I work for this company and most of our business happens during the summer when it's really busy. So I'll live in Detroit during the summer or during, during the warm weather. And when it's warm, that means my dad sat in a warehouse at a desk wearing a coat.
Oh.
Because it was still cold. So they did this for about 3 years. And I would travel to Detroit constantly. And we would do fun things in Detroit. So I have been to this place a couple of times.
Okay.
The Detroit Zoo.
Oh!
I'm sure you and Megan would be excited to hear
We
about
would be excited about it.
Zoo.
I was going to say we have not been to that one, but...
So the Detroit Zoo, it's a nice zoo. It's got a little train that goes around it.
Of course they do.
Of course they do.
Every zoo has a train.
Right. This is the train. I love...
Oh, it's cute. It's kind of... Okay, so most of the time zoo trains or attraction trains try to look like a little steam engine.
This is not.
This one looks more like an Amtrak.
Yeah, but like
it's
1960s,
very modern. Yeah, like
60s.
like very modern style.
Yeah, so they had a little train. The train, it just basically goes around the outside of the zoo. I mean, It's like, I remember riding on it going, oh, look, there's the fence to the parking lot. But
it's to get you from spot to spot so that you don't have to walk the whole way from one area
exactly
to the next.
Exactly.
Right.
So that's one of them, and that's one of the places to visit at the zoo.
Okay.
They have a carousel.
I love a carousel.
It's a 36-foot custom-made wood and brass carousel.
Oh.
It has 33 hand-carved, hand-painted figures.
Oh.
It has horses, mammals, birds,
Mm-hmm.
reptiles, amphibians, insects, snakes, fish, seahorses, dinosaurs, because,
Sure.
And then they have one, area where, they always have a chariot or something. They have a peacock chariot.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. I love it.
So that is one of the things that they have there. I will find a picture of it in a second.
I was always the kid that wanted to ride the weird animal on this, like, don't give me a horse. Like, put me on the back of a manatee.
Right? So they have it's really neat. I will find a picture of it and post it later. Anyway, the capacity of this carousel can hold up to 546 riders.
Are you kidding me?
I think that's wrong.
That can't be.
It can't be right. But apparently they accommodate 1.6 million riders a year.
That's fantastic. Yeah. I can't even accommodate one rider per year.
The zoo also has different areas like zoos do. They have an Australian outback, adventure American grasslands. They have African grasslands, Arctic ring of life, the African forest, the Asian forest, and the conservation campus.
Fantastic.
There's also a 4D theater.
Ooh, I love, that's fun.
Then the railroad that I pointed out, that's Tauber, Tauber Family Railroad. And they also have a thing called Giraffe Encounter. I don't know what that entails.
Is it maybe one of those things where they have tall platforms and you can go and like feed or see the giraffes so that you're kind of like eye to eye to them and they're like, what the fuck are you doing all the way up here?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So here is a picture. Why do I keep clicking on carousel and then the picture just disappears? Okay. But it's really neat. I will post pictures of it.
Fantastic.
But it's a nice zoo. I've been there a couple of times.
It sounds nice. I was in Detroit many, many, many years ago when I was in high school. I'm not going to tell you how many years ago I was in high school. But I did go to Detroit and went to a prom with a friend of mine.
Oh, nice.
That was like a buddy and a pen pal. And so I didn't get to see much of the city. I was just up there for the weekend. But we did go because it was the 90s.
Right.
We did go with a bunch of people in a limo after
Of
prom,
course.
like you
Right,
do.
like you do.
And got to see a little bit of downtown Detroit, and I thought it was very, very pretty. And so
Nice.
I wouldn't mind going back. And now that I know that there's a really nice zoo with a really nice train and the chance to make friends with a giraffe, I might have to put that on my travel list. All right.
So that's my what's nice.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for hanging out with us. This is episode 20.
Episode 20.
So we are, I guess we're in this now, huh?
Right. We're thick in the mud.
We're thick in the mud and looking at new and interesting ways to get muddy with you.
Yes.
In the upcoming months, and you know, we really appreciate you, appreciate the listenership. Love that you support us. Love that you like us. Love that you engage with us on Facebook. And,
and just share with your friends.
Please do. Yeah. Everybody, if you tell one new person, 2 new people this week, that would be the very best thing that you can do to help us grow.
Absolutely.
And in the meantime,
what do we like to say?
We like to say stay Midwest nice.
Stay Midwest nice.